No plan survives contact with reality. So why do I even need one? All right, well, welcome to the Throw the Boss Out podcast with Joe Leach and Jim Suhan once again. There's an episode number to this one, but I'm not really paying too much attention. Or do we have a number for it?
I do guarantee this will be one of the 10 best podcasts we've ever done together.
Up to date, anyway. Yes, to date, anyway. So I think we're talking episode 6 is what I've just been told. So I'm going to trust that number. Episode 6, welcome. We're going to talk about business plans, but I have some very interesting news for everybody listening and for Jim that I've figured out. And it goes to the whole idea that people are always told that businesses never survive, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Such a high percentage of businesses never survive 5 years. And there's some numbers that say 20% fail in the first year and 50% fail in the fifth year. And that's always kind of driven me a bit crazy, because why do you want to discourage people? Now, if it's real, I'm all for reality, but it's not real. I learned that it's not real. It's statistics. Do you remember what Mark Twain said about statistics?
Yes, and as a sports writer living in the age of advanced analytics, I rely on that Mark Twain saying all the time.
Right. Go ahead and say it. I just want you to say it. I hope we have the same quote.
There are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Exactly. So the one thing about statistics that you never know is how has it been sliced and diced? What does it include? What doesn't it include? Where did I draw the line? Right? I can draw the line on anything. I can add a few more days to a sample. I can do whatever. So this whole business thing, guess what? I have learned that when they talk about business closings, they include when a business is sold, when a business changes names.
Well, I've already changed names 3 times.
When a business merges, it basically just takes into consideration there were employees on this date last year, but there aren't today. That's a business closing.
Weird. That's a terrible way to categorize it.
Well, let's put it in perspective. This makes it even more interesting. Let's say we applied that to employment. People leave their jobs on an average of every 4.4 years.
Wow.
If we figured statistically, we figured unemployment statistically that way, that every time somebody essentially left their job, that they were unemployed, what do you think our unemployment rate would look like?
About 30%.
Right. Nobody would want to go and get a job.
Yep.
And what's the other reality of that? When someone loses their job, what do?
Start looking for a new job.
Or they probably just get a new job. And in a lot of cases, they just move. Business people are the same way.
Yeah.
What happens if you start a business and you find out it's just not working and you literally shut it down gracefully, no harm, no foul to anybody, and you start a different business? The government says that was a business failure. So how's that for some perspective this morning?
Sounds like damn lies and statistics.
Yes. So anyway, the reason I wanted to bring that up in this episode is we're talking about business plans. And I think that business plans, we started the show out with a ruckus opening. And the phrase I used was no plan survives contact with reality. That comes from a good friend of mine whose name is Jim McCormick. He's a very underrated business voice in the community. I'm pretty sure you can find him on LinkedIn. He does not have a lot of stuff published, but he's got 10 rules, and one of the rules is no plan survives contact with reality. And it comes from a military. A lot of his stuff is very military oriented. And yet that he's still super encouraged about business, knowing that you can plan and it's not going to turn out anything like you plan. And so people are out there saying, well, I might as well not plan. And today I'm trying to tell everybody, you need to plan because it's going to work, just not how you expect it to.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. If you don't plan, it's probably not going to work out at all. I mean, that might be a little bit too general of a statement, but I would say most businesses that fail didn't have a plan, or they had a very misinformed plan. So we're going to talk today about what are the important things about a business plan. If you look at the SBA site, and the SBA really is a good place to get information. Now, I'm going to be careful not to give out too much information. Let me just see if I can find this real quick. I'm not going to give up too much information as far as I'm against telling people go to this very website, find your data here, find your data there. Do you know why?
No.
Think about it.
Nope, you're going to have to help me.
You're going to go into business.
I'm not thinking well on my feet today.
You have got to be adventurous. You've got to be inquisitive. You've got to be tenacious. And if you're just going to wait for everybody to tell you where to go get everything,
Yeah.
this is training. Like, I'm helping people train here.
You're helping me.
I'm like the personal trainer in the gym. I'm not going to do the push-ups for you.
What if I give you like $20? Would you do all the push-ups for me?
I'll do 2 of the 30 push-ups I'm going to make you do, something like that. We can negotiate. I want to be clear with people. This isn't going to be a podcast where I'm telling you here's where you go and here's how you do this. I just don't think it's very beneficial to you. You need to figure this stuff out yourself. But sometimes I'm going to bring stuff up like the SBA's. I was looking at their site just to get a great outline of how somebody would typically do a business plan. A lot of times people get excited about business plan because it has this really fun stuff in it, like the executive summary, right? Who doesn't want to write an executive summary? And let's face it, when you're going into business, it's exciting. You have these ideas of, how great it's going to be to have my own business and all those things that just get you all excited. And writing an executive summary, and then, the management team, right? Where I'm right at the top, and then I'm going to find other management team members to be part of my management team, and I'm going to put something together. Many of these things are probably going to be useful if you're trying to seek outside funding, if you're trying to get a loan, whatever. But I'm saying for what I'm talking about today, not really necessary. If you're going to do them last. Here are the things that I'm going to talk about today. You got to know your product and service relative to everything. The market, yourself, its competitors, everything. So you got to know your product or service very well. You need to do market research. You need to know, and you need to ask yourself, how could this go wrong? Too many people are spending all their time saying, how can this go right? How can this go right? Now, this doesn't mean I'm trying to be negative. It's saying you're about to spend a bunch of time and energy and money probably on something. You want to ask yourself, what are all the ways this could go wrong? Now, you have to do it in a positive way. You have to, because you want to make sure that it's successful. So that's really, really important. So market research, marketing, super important on whatever you're doing. How much marketing will you have to do? What kind of marketing will you have to do? Back to the barrier of entry thing. One of your biggest decisions might be, I'm going to find a niche that's so strong I don't have to do any marketing, right? There's just such a big, wide need for something, which I love the most. Like I'm telling people, that's the first thing you should do is like look under every rock, try to find those things that other people are ignoring where there's a need. That's the best thing to do. But most businesses will need some marketing. We're going to talk about projections, and we're going to talk about plans B, C, and D. And that goes along with no plan survives contact with reality. You got to know what to do next. And you will do something next. Just be prepared for it.
This is the Throw the Boss podcast, Throw the Boss Out podcast. This is part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Mostly sports. This is our business show on the network. We are considering, because we have so much fun doing this, we're considering all kinds of podcasts for the future. If you'd ever like to sponsor this podcast, this network, or if you want to bring one of your own shows and get one of your own shows on the network and advertise there, we can make pretty much anything happen at TalkNorth.com. Send me an email at jsouhan47@gmail.com.
Thanks, Jim. I love that. Just the fact that we could have advertisers just really excites me.
Well, I mean,
It's like a new business venture.
Well, yeah, and if you're going to advertise, if you sell or market to businesses, what better way to reach other businesses than on a business podcast?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Won't repeat it. couldn't if I.
I'm used to dealing with editors. I'm not comfortable with somebody leaving my words alone.
You're great. See, if I ever do these without Jim, we leave out all that stuff because I forget. I'm just not a professional.
No, it's because you get excited about the content.
I do. And
it's good. So it's okay for somebody else to throw in the furniture, as we call it.
Jim is holding down the fort. That's what we would say. Keeping this thing a real business. Okay, so like before I launch into any of this stuff, do you have questions about?
I have so many questions, it would be counterproductive for me to ask them all because I'd ask like 50 questions. So I'm going to let you answer the questions as you see fit.
One of the Talk North advertisers, Tony.
Mm-hmm, Tony Hoagland.
Who's from?
Champlin.
Okay. He asked a question when I threw this out there saying we were going to talk about business plans. His question was, how often should somebody do one? Which basically exemplifies the reality that a business plan isn't just for when you go into business. You really should reanalyze your business on a regular basis. I don't know the answer to that for Tony. Tony's insurance.
Yep, State Farm.
I don't know that business all that well. So I think everybody should come to that conclusion themselves. But generally speaking, people do redo their business plan when things are either going very poorly or going very well. I would say when you make that decision, you're probably behind the curve. So my advice would be do a business plan when you wouldn't normally do a business plan. How's that for advice?
Interesting.
Like you're just walking down the street one day and somebody says the word business plan. You say, I really should just do one and start it tomorrow. I don't know how good of advice that is, but that's what I got for you, Tony. Other things that I suppose people want to know is how detailed should it be? I think we talked about that in one of our other podcasts. And I believe I'm a believer in there's a point of diminishing return to anything. So what's the answer to how detailed or how vague one should be? I like to start with something I call segmentation. So every aspect of my business, brands, if I'm talking about products, services is types of customers, geographic locations, just spill out on a piece of paper every aspect of that service or that product that could be categorized and go and just go crazy with it. Think of any way you could. And then when you're looking at that list, the top 4 or 5 will stand out. That these would be the 4 or 5 that would have the most impact if I knew the most information about those things. And again, that'll be different for different businesses. And I always invite people, if you want to go to Throw the Boss Out Twitter or Facebook page and say, hey, here's the kind of business I have. You have any ideas of how you would segment your business plan? I'd have so much fun doing that. I would just love to help with that kind of a thing. So I outlined some of these before: product and service, the market, geographic locations if you're not going to be online, that kind of a thing. And then the projections. This is where it gets really interesting. How on earth do you know how much you're going to sell? How can anybody possibly know how much they're going to sell? The answer is you probably aren't going to know, but you can get darn close if you, again, break down the ways that you're going to get the money, or you break down who the competitors are. You're going to break down product demand. You can get all kinds of information online now. It's just unbelievable what you can get for free. And all you do is go to your browser and use whichever search engine you want. Now, if there's search engines out there that want to advertise on the show, we'd be happy to fill the blank in with the name.
Well, yes,
right.
We do that.
Talk about your browser all the time, but for today's purposes, we're just simply going to say go to your browser and type in your question, and then just start digging. You have to be tenacious. You have to be super interested. Like one of my favorite words having to do with human behavior is interest, because it will drive everything. It's at the heart of enthusiasm. It's at the heart of growth. It's at the heart of everything. If you're interested, you will find the information that you're looking for. So go online and get all kinds of information about what it is that you're selling or your service. I think one thing I could do is I could use our store